No.
I'm in the show.
Okay. Yeah, good. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Vantage Point Conversations, where I get to have amazing guests on. I get to ask loads of questions out of a place of curiosity. And today, my guest is Beth Hammond. Beth, before we sort of get into the conversation, I always have the same opening monologue. I don't introduce my guests. It's not a lazy thing. I just think I would do a very bad job. So over to you. Just to introduce yourself. Take as long, as little time as you like. Anything, highlights, lowlights, anything you think is worth for people to know about you, and then we just jump into the conversation.
Brilliant. Thanks, Colin. How long have you got? So yeah, don't get me started. So I'm Beth, and I work with women in midlife and have been a coach for women for 20 plus years, but I'm focusing very much on women in midlife and helping them reconnect with themselves. You know, it's very easy. We sort of looking after everybody else, running everything else, and we forget who we are in the melee of it all. We sort of turn back and think, where did I go? What about me? So I'm really about focusing on helping women reconnect with their spark, what brings them joy, getting rid of the old stories that just really don't fit, or the stories that were never theirs in the first place, and doing that without feeling guilty, which is another thing that a lot of women I work with carry with them unnecessarily. So we break it down in really practical steps. And my passion really is because I know this stuff works, which sounds, I'm sure, what everybody thinks about their work, but I genuinely know everything that I've been working on, teaching, coaching, mentoring for the last 23-ish years with women, when tried and tested, works. And there's a whole load of fluff and guffle out there that doesn't. But this does. And I know it because I've tried and tested it myself. And to be fair, for 15 years, it was a bit like, oh, well, life's pretty good. So when life is easy, stuff is easy. But then when life throws you big curveballs, and I've had many, as you know, Colin, and I'll share those with people listening, you sort of put your feet are against the fire. And it's like, okay, well, does this stuff work? And does it help me? And I was really fortunate that I could rely on the toolbox that I had honed massively to be able to navigate an absolute shitstorm that hit when I turned 41. So yeah, I feel like it would be a shame not to share what happened when I turned 41.
Yeah, well, go for it.
Let's so into that. Turned 41 and was diagnosed with a massive brain tumor, totally out of the blue. Had a seizure. And yeah, took myself to hospital, and they said, "Oh, I think you've had a stroke." And I said, "I don't think so, sir, but thank you for your time." I'm not really stroke material, because that's not a thing. Actually, it turns out. And I sort of sat in A&E, and there's people with legs and arms hanging off, and I was like, I think I'm in the wrong room. I'll go home now. And they said, "No, you won't." So I stayed, and I stayed in for another 5 days whilst they worked out what they were going to do with me and how they were going to make it different. So I had to pull on a lot of resources then. I had 2 young children. My mum had just been diagnosed with breast cancer like the week before. I mean, it was just like, this is rubbish. I thought life begins at 40, not sort of ends. I want my money back. That was pretty tough. And then I had the sort of planning period until I had a craniotomy, which is where they basically, take off the top of your head like an egg. Sorry if anyone's having a boiled egg for breakfast. That's ruined that. Yeah, not anymore. And they removed the tumour, which was great, at Charing Cross Hospital in London. And I made a really quick recovery, and I was home and lippy on and feeling like I was superwoman and could take on the world. I then got divorced. COVID hit, which we all enjoyed to some extent, I'm sure. And I had my daughter, my eldest, was out of school. They're both autistic, finding her a school place. There was a lot of stuff going on. The family dog died. I mean, it was just like, any more? Keep the buses coming. So it was a really intense period of like really unexpected, massive life shifts in a really condensed period of time. So I had to pull upon what I knew. And thankfully, I had spent a long time looking at mindset, looking at how you can trust yourself, how you can make decisions with confidence. And it was like, right, buckle up, because this is the test.
I was just I was thinking about, excuse me. I was thinking about that because like when things all go, you know, when everything's going right, it's easy to say, oh yeah, I've got this in place, I've got this in place. But it's actually the test when things go wrong. And thanks for sharing all of that, because that's a lot to throw at one person in a short period of time. That you have these things that you can pull on. And I think the confidence thing is something really underrated. Not, you know, we all sort of say we want confidence, etc. But when stuff happens to you, I feel that confidence is one of those things that seems to go quickest. It's almost like, okay, I'm just going to throw that out because things that I knew about no longer stand. They don't seem to be true anymore. And you know, you kind of in an upside down world, and you go, well, yeah, everything that I knew isn't right. And so you go, and because you go, I don't have any confidence in myself or the abilities or something like that. So having something that you can go to that brings that back in such an ideal way that supports you going forward. Because when you're down, I've seen this before, people can take advantage of you as well. People around you, like, and I know that sounds horrible, and I know there are very many nice people out there, but I've seen it in work situations where, you know, someone's sort of been vulnerable and said, oh, I'm going through this, and then they were taken advantage of, not physically but mentally. And I was like, what's this?
Yeah.
That's not caring, that's not human. And you can see that has even more of an impact on confidence than anything else, and that feels hugely unfair to me. So that confidence part is something amazing. So I'm quite curious, so you had all these things in your life, you had them all before. Are they interchangeable, or are they like a set of certain things, principles, values, frameworks, routines? What is that?
I think it's a culmination. I think I make huge sweeping generalizations here, but confidence often we can think of as performative. So I would say I'm an ambivert, but probably more leaning towards an extrovert. So I sound confident, I stand confident. People would describe me as confident. That's not what confidence is. And that's my real sort of, that's my bit between my teeth, is like, confidence isn't about being performative. That's a very different type of confidence. What I'm really interested in, and what it stands the test of time when the shit hits the fan, is the inner quiet, the confidence that doesn't need to say anything, the confidence that is happy to be wrong and actively seeks to be wrong, to be challenged, to be curious, to see a different side. That's the bit that nobody talks about and you don't see from the outside. And that's the bit that keeps, well, certainly for me and the clients who I work with, that's the bit you come home to. Yeah. You know, that's the bit that really stands the test of time. So it's do I trust myself? And that's why, you know, I refer to it as confidence, because that's how people think about it in the general world. But actually it's self-trust. The bedrock is self-trust to everything. When you trust yourself, not that you're always doing everything right, but that when you get things wrong or things don't work out as you anticipate, that you trust yourself to be able to handle it. And it's not that you can necessarily change the outcome. You know, the destination is sometimes already, you know, that's down to the medical team in this instance, or what have you. But you can always change your experience. And that bit, I took a huge amount of comfort from, that in a place of feeling totally out of control on so many levels. Actually, the one thing I really could control, and nobody else could control, unless I relinquished that to them, was how I responded, thought about things, and what I chose to believe. So I chose to believe that I could trust in the fact that I could handle what was thrown my way. And by doing that, often, so when you talked about, you know, what are the sort of principles, the principles are, I can do this, I trust myself. And often when we're making big decisions, we don't tell anybody else about it. We tend to tell everybody about all the little minutiae stuff that actually, and everyone, yeah, no, I wouldn't do that. Oh, yeah, no, oh, my friend did it, you know, so all that sort of stuff. Actually, when it's a big decision, we kind of tend to keep that to ourselves, and or maybe share it with just a very few nearest and dearest, because actually we don't want the white noise, and we don't need the white noise to tell us that we other people's sort of infiltrating your thoughts about things. So, I mean, I don't do anything in particular. I do meditate. Meditation is something that I do and I've done for a long time. I don't practice every day, but I practice very regularly, and I have done for a long time. I like a brain dump, you know, anything that's whizzing around in my head, especially at night, or when you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and you've just got that like tangle of spaghetti in your head where you've got a bazillion ideas. I also got a late ADHD diagnosis, which doesn't come as much surprise. Hello, squirrel brain. I'm like, hold on a minute, I've got a brilliant idea. Another one. This is the one. So having a notebook by my bed and actually everywhere, because anyone with ADHD will know you have to have at least 35 notebooks at any given time, because that'll be the one that makes the difference. But to write down the stuff in any kind of way that doesn't have to make sense, you may not revisit it, but it's just getting it out. And that really helps to just quieten the noise when things feel overwhelming, and you can perhaps get a lot of different opinions from places which aren't necessarily helpful.
Yeah. I just want to touch on something you mentioned there. You know, this confidence we think is, you know, sort of almost extroverted behavior. And in my own experience, the people that are extroverted and seem super confident, they are so not. They are covering up a ton of insecurities. And you can basically sort of ding their armor very easily, and it's almost like a protective thing. They go out of their way so people won't try and, you know, not attack them or see those insecurities. And so I think it's a great reframe, because we have this misconception: oh, they're extroverted, they're very, very outgoing, etc. They're super confident. But inside, they're actually screaming, there's a lot of insecurities. And what I loved about what you said is the confidence is the inner knowing, that inner trust in yourself. And that once you have that, you know, like everything, I think it can be shakeable, but you can connect back to it quite easily. And you can build it up and trust it and test it and experiment. And you said this at the beginning. You know, just because things go wrong doesn't mean that goes away. And having that inner belief, I keep thinking to myself, it's a belief more than anything else.
Everything's
really is that foundation for those things. And I've often found that, you know, when you have that confidence in yourself, it's reflected back to you from the outside world. And it's not just holding yourself different, it's just how you see yourself, how you show up. And I mentioned this before. I started a relationship while I was still married, and wasn't a great time. What I did and how I did it wasn't great. I fully understand that, and I beat myself up a lot for this. And the way that the world reflected to me was the way that I saw myself. And I gave it time, but at a certain point, I had to get past that, because I think I used it as a way to beat myself up. And that wasn't my identity. That's not how I saw myself. But everyone was kind of the way they looked at me. And I changed how I saw myself. I had to go through certain steps to do that. But then the world reflects that back. And it's quite, and I said this before, we wait often for the world to show us that we're something, but actually it starts within, and then it reflects back what we actually want. And that seems a bit weird, but when you do it, sometimes not easy. I'm sure, like you say, there's certain things that have worked, and that's great. But when you're not in that place, you are constantly looking for the outside to validate the inside. But for me, definitely it had to come from the inside.
Absolutely, it has to come from the inside. And I think when you talk about validation, you know, who are we waiting for that from, and what is that for? What what is that trying to, and not in a kind of, that's ridiculous, let's put a full stop at the end of that, but like out of genuine curiosity. If I think, oh God, I'm going to let this person down, like I genuinely, like, what is that about? What is it about that person I'm more concerned about than somebody else? And there will always be something. There's something that, often daughters want to seek the approval of their father. That's that's a connection that often you see through many patterns. And also when you talk about people who are extroverted, of course, there are people who are naturally extroverts, and they may well also be very confident within themselves. They're comfortable in themselves. And there are absolutely, a whole swathe of introverts just because they don't shout about it. So you don't have to be either or anything in between to feel more or less trusting of yourself. And it's interesting when I talk about self-trust, and I said to people, what does self-trust mean to you? And they were like, I could trust myself that if I said I'm only going for 2 beers, that I would. And I was like, wow, that's really interesting, that it's almost like these parameters that you've put on yourself that you can behave. Yeah. Whereas, like, so as a parental thing, you'd say, well, I trust my child. You basically trust your child not to go and be a little somewhere. That's not trusting in there. It was really interesting to see that we can often attribute trust to somebody behaving, and not that they're able to cope with something or navigate something. And the thing that the thing that they don't tell you, or they certainly didn't tell me when you're growing up, is that life gets more and more complicated. The more people you know, the more sadness you see, the more challenges you experience, the more you put yourself out there, the more rejection you face. There is more and more that happens as you get older. And I think one of the best things you can do for younger people, and certainly my children, is to give them the skill set that they don't need to rely on me. They've got that within themselves. And actually, sometimes they're going to find it's not that easy. And that's okay. It's not meant to be always easy all the time, but not being easy doesn't mean it's awful. It just means it's different. Yeah. So it's a period of time. Everything changes. Nothing stays forever. And that's the thing with it. If you decide within yourself, that's where women come to me. They're like, I'm ready for a reset. This feeling in my stomach, it's a physiological feeling that you wake up feeling, here we go, autopilot. That doesn't go away with podcasts and reading books. I mean, in the main. So you need to delve a bit deeper. And when you decide that you want to do that, it's like, okay, well, let's learn some practical tools. And I'm going to be all right with riding the storm, because actually staying with the meh feeling is really rubbish. That's hard. living like that every day.
So as you were saying that, I was thinking, when you said about the self-trust, it's and the way you describe it, I can only I'll go for 2 beers and no more. It seems like in my head that looks like self-restriction. And I'm going to throw out a compliment, so please, hopefully it lands. Ever since you and I have been in contact, I have felt 100% you are yourself. Like, but in such a beautiful way. And for me, that is confidence. And I said this before on one of my lives. If you can get through life being who you truly are, that to me is success. Because I think the outside world shapes us, certainly from a young age, to be in those boxes, to be a certain way. Don't be extroverted, don't be bossy, all these labels, all these things to make the whole world comfortable with you, but shaped for their benefit. But be yourself, to understand yourself is hard enough, and to find your place in this world and be yourself is super successful. And I don't believe many people, men or women, are that way. I think that we all have this version of ourselves that we're not hiding, or we're hiding, or we're not connecting with. And ever since I've met you, I've honestly felt that you are exactly who you are, and that to me is very, very inspirational. And I love that, because you know, if you were in a bad mood or whatever, you go, okay, that's fine. Like, but you have generally embodied exactly what you say. And I love that. And I find that that is very inspiring to be, because when you show up as that unfiltered, you know, it allows other people to do that as well. And
Yes.
I mirrored that back to you, and you. So the last conversation we had before this live, you said people say, "Oh, I've got." Most people come and go, "I've got to do this to-do list, to-do list," and you're like, "No, I don't actually." You said, "Oh, I needed to have a nap, and I needed to do," and you said, "You did two things," and you know what? I went, "Holy shit! Yeah, I don't need to do all these things," and I'm
Mhm.
like, and again, it gave me permission to go, yeah, none of that stuff does. It's this outside projection that we have, that all that stuff has to get done. I know you mentioned about your taxes, that had to get done, obviously.
I know, and I did my taxes, and I paid the accountant, and I forgot to pay the bloody tax, so I missed the date because I'm
There's a
still
fine
so
on your
well.
doorstep. No, but and I think we need more people like you that are just that inner confidence and all of that, just that ability, that permission to be ourselves, and then however that shows up in the world, be okay with that, because that is confidence, right? It's just to
Mhm.
say, I'm going to be who I am. If people don't like that, then okay. I would caveat that with, I tried this as a kid when I was, I don't know, say about 7, 8. My mum said to me, "How come you're such a good boy in school, but when you're home, you're a bit crazy?" And I was like, "Oh." So I went to school and I went crazy, and everyone looked at me just like I was an absolute. So what happened?
Interesting you chose it that way round rather than to take the well-behaved and take that home.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, you see, can't
yeah,
keep the fire down.
to be honest, the one at home was actually more me. I was just sort of fitting into the
Yeah.
socially acceptable nice boy at school. But I went too far. I went to the extreme. And I think this is often what we do, is because we've been repressed a certain way, we go, oh, okay, now I've got to rebel. So I'm going to do everything, you know, I'm going to put a big spider tattoo on my face. So like, it's just, no, it doesn't need to be that way. I think it can be quiet, like that inner confidence doesn't have to be showy. Does that make sense?
It's like they say, wealth whispers. You know, whispering wealth rather than the glam. You know, showy offies. It's like, who are you doing? What's that about? That facade. It's like I'm going to tell everybody how I'm. You know, it's like, who for? That's a sense of, again, needing that validation. I mean, I like nice stuff, don't get me wrong, but I'm certainly not overly wealthy, but you don't need to necessarily sort of shout about everything from the rooftops. And I think that whole sense of fitting in and feeling rejected, yeah, I mean, it's in our cut us in half. And nobody wants to be the one left behind. Nobody wants to be the one picked on. And people will find that they will get into groups, even now as adults, you know, you're 47 and a half. Every half counts, and it's still, you've got that sort of little group of people who might, and I just don't subscribe to it. So I don't attract it because I don't choose to subscribe to it. And I know that sounds a bit trite, but like, actually, I don't give a fuck in the nicest possible way. Like, it's not that I don't care about people. I just don't mind. Like, I'm not actively here for this very short time as this tiny little, really insignificant being in this grand scheme of the world and the universe. I mean, really, when have we become so like self-important and self-obsessed and seeking to be liked and seeking to be, you know, running ourselves to the ground? You know, nobody's going to stand at the graveside and say, you know, here lies Beth. She was always so busy, and, you know, we were so grateful. You know, I don't want them to say that. Here lies Beth. She's furious because she still had loads of naps to do and a lot more talking. That's what I want.
Now she's just gone for a big nap. So
yeah, she's going for the big sleep. You wait till she wakes up and she's really refreshed. Yeah. Yeah, and this is the thing about being wrong. So when we were talking about like what do we want to chat about, and like we are so like at school we have to, it's all about the right and wrong. Do this right, you get a sticker. Do it wrong, you get told off, whether you understood it or not, whether you were having other things that you were managing, processing, whatever. It's all about the getting it right equals success. Now, if they gave stickers out for coming up with the most obscure, like, wow, how did that come out? Like, do we get the psychotherapist in, or do we give this boy a sticker? Like, this is brilliant and weird. Where does your brain go? I think that we would be in such a different place with our innovation. If when Google came out and everyone was like, well, no one's going to do that. You've got a library. Why? Now it's we're standing outside the library saying, come on, we still need our libraries. because you can't imagine what something's going to be like when somebody thinks about something so out of the box, because we have to be in this is correct, and anything that isn't already known and considered right is wrong. So I've kind of really encourage myself, as much as I do my clients, to actively seek out where are you holding fast for the sake of being right when you haven't actually checked in with yourself. Yeah. So whether that be old stories that people tell us, conditioning is obviously super strong without even being conscious of it, societal, work, family, faith, whatever it might be, and all of it together. But where are we actively sort of sabotaging ourselves because we're not reflecting back and thinking, hold on, is that still actually accurate? I might have thought that then, but that was 10 years ago, and I'm more experienced and I'm more capable, I'm more knowledgeable, I'm more curious, I've had more life experience, I'm more selective. So actually I'm in a much better place to re-qualify. Is that still relevant to me now? And sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. And when people say, oh, everyone's getting divorced now, my parents just stuck with it. Yeah, they stuck with it. They were fucking unhappy. No one was having sex. No one was spending any time together. And they did it because there wasn't a perceived option of doing things differently. Now we know sometimes we can change our mind. And that's really refreshing to go, actually, yeah, do you know what? Maybe that isn't relevant to me now. That's the wrong trousers, as Wallace and Gromit would say. It's the wrong trousers.
I love this idea because I think a lot of stuff carries from our childhood. I genuinely believe that. And, we interpret a situation based on a child's brain. But I also overlap and echo what you're saying about school. It's a pass fail. I know there's different grades, but basically you're either one or the other. And that's how we learn. And I've talked about this a few times now. I think life would be so much better if we experimented, but people don't, because you go to work and you feel that you have to play safe. Everything needs to be right because you're going to get paid, or there's a bonus tied to things working out. There's no bonus to things not working out, and so we don't dare. And then even some of these companies that, that like to say that they're very innovative. Yeah, well, you understand.
Yeah.
There we go. Thank you. And they're not. They go, no. And I feel that there should be such a place for experimenting. And I found this. So when I started doing all these lives, it was just an experiment. I kind of said I was going to do it. Do you know what? I love just experimenting, because it's just this beautiful playground where you go, oh, okay, I'm going to try that, and everything seems so easy. It's just like, yeah, I'm going to try that. If it doesn't work, and because of that, there's no negative outcome. If I do something for a week, or I put a time limit on it, the only thing at the end is just a learning. It's like, yeah, that worked, and I can continue, or I can continue and tweak it a little bit because something didn't quite work out elsewhere. It's just such an amazing place to go, rather than this all or nothing thinking, which I do suffer from, to be honest.
Me too.
But it's just, and I believe if you had freedom, if your bonus in work or in life was tied to experimenting and getting things actively wrong, oh, how amazing would it be to just come up with ideas and concepts and like you were a kid again. And I genuinely believe, everyone sort of says about work has to be all professional and just fit into that box, etc. No, it doesn't. Actually, we're all human. We're designed to be creative or to think different ways, to explore, to try and find new ways of doing things. Let that come out, because we won't be thinking about doing something the same way, and we'll start questioning it, and that brings that behavior. And then when you start seeing other people do it, you do it, and it's such a great thing to, rather than go to work and go, oh, I've got to do everything that I'm told, go, oh, I'm going to go to work and play. How cool.
Yeah, why challenge the system? Like, if you can see a different way of doing something, just because it's always being done like this, there could be, surprisingly, another way, and it might get to the same result quicker, and it might get to the same result slower, but if you don't try it, you don't know. And there might be other ways that you can change things up. Just because we always have doesn't mean we always need to continue doing that. And I think that's the thing about actively seeking to be wrong, or where you might choose differently, now knowing what you know with what you've got and where you're at currently, what's important to you. We don't check in with ourselves. We check my computer. I mean, anyone who knows me knows I'm allergic to anything with a plug, genuinely.
Come out
I've got 3 lights that don't work, so I've got this blaring in my face here. I've got, anything with a plug or a switch, really, I'm kind of out. But people are my thing. And I've lost my train of thought there. What was I saying? It was good. It was really good. Yeah.
You said you don't like computers.
I don't know. Why was I telling you that?
Doesn't matter.
It'll probably come to me at like 3 a.m, and I'll either have to stick it in my brain dump box. No, it's gone.
So I have a couple of questions. So the idea that you help people, so you help women. So is the advice specific for women? And I know we've talked about niching before, and I have a different perspective, and we can talk about that in a second.
Well, yeah.
But do you think the same logic could apply to men than women? There's a question behind this, is because of this midlife crisis, and I've had this conversation with my girlfriend quite a few times. When we were younger, my mum and dad say, oh yeah, so and so, they're having a midlife crisis, and it was this, oh yeah, he's gone off and had an affair, he's got himself a sports car and stuff like that. And I don't know if it's because of things that have happened to me in my life and I have a different perspective, but this is the story I'm telling myself, and I don't know if it makes me feel.
Let's see whether you're wrong.
So I believe that we spend all of our lives trying to please the people outside of us, like our parents, family, teachers, whatever. We do that in school. There's expectations, said or not said, but felt. And then we sort of fall into a career, we fall into a lifestyle that we think that our parents or whoever would be proud of us for. Then we get to a stage, and I think about the 40s, is that you go, right, I've probably achieved some level of success in an area where I thought I was chasing something, maybe a title or money or status or whatever, and I'm so miserable. And I've got the family, I've got the house, I've got the kids, none of that makes sense. And so again, we go the opposite way and go, I'm going to kind of abandon all that and try and find out who I am, because I've been living my life for other people, and that's why it feels that way. And I don't think everything needs to be thrown out. It just needs I think it's a rebellion against fitting in, and we want to go like I did in school and just go 100% the other way. I don't necessarily think it is all that. You just go, okay, if you can understand what's important to you and who you are, and you can connect to those, you can adjust along those ways. And so when you started this conversation, I was thinking about work, but it's not just about work. It's about everything, who you are, your friends, your family, your lifestyle, your kids, the relationships you have, the relationship you have with money, your status,
The
everything.
relationship you have with yourself.
Yeah.
The
And
relationship you have with yourself is paramount.
yeah. And so, but then you can adjust those other things. There doesn't need to be a complete shift. And so that's my theory, because we get to that level of, we think that we've almost got to the top of the mountain. When we got to the top of the mountain, it's not the mountain we actually wanted to climb. The mountain we wanted to climb, we think is over there, and we kind of want to experiment. So to get over there, we get the big sports car so we can drive there very quickly. Shoot me down in any of that if it's yeah, wrong.
I mean that's a well trodden path, isn't it, for a lot of middle-aged men having a crisis. I think we all have a ceiling of capacity as to what we're willing to accept. And when we heighten our awareness, which is a double-edged sword, when you've got really heightened self-awareness, which I do and was kind of brought up with, you realize how unaware everybody else is. And it's like, but when you heighten your self-awareness as to what actually is important to me and why is it important to me, not like this should be important, an aspirational value. Honesty. Really? Is honesty a value of yours that you really think? So you go around and go, well, that's, that tastes disgusting. So perhaps it's, maybe honesty isn't your core value. It would be something, something slightly different, but you feel like honesty is something that you would like to think is something that you value very highly and portray to other people. So when you know yourself and you heighten your self-awareness and you actually come down to, if you were the only person, and you are the only person in your own life, everybody else comes and goes. Everybody. You are the only person you are with 24/7. You go to bed with yourself, you wake up with yourself. You are the mind going, the talking, the incessant, questions or not. I can't imagine that, but yeah. It's you are the only person that you're with 24/7. So when you listen to yourself of what's truly important to you, and you almost just literally block out everybody and anything else. So any societal expectations, work, family, faith, whatever it might be. I think what actually is important to me. For me, it's having an impact. I want to have a positive impact. And out of that will come other things. But that's really important to me. Is that altruism? No, it makes me feel good. So when you know what's important to you and you can then design your life around that, is what I'm doing congruent to what is important to me? And if it's not, there's a disconnect. And that disconnect doesn't go away unless you change something. And that's the feeling that women who I work with, because I work with women, and I just always have, but I'm sure there's not very much difference between the way that men feel as well, apart from perhaps they don't articulate it in the same way, is that feeling in your stomach that goes, is this it? Like, I don't know, like, really? And for how long? It's like, what am I going to change? And it's never baby out with the bathwater. It's getting that heightened awareness and then thinking, okay, what small incremental changes can make a sustainable shift? So it's not like, right, I'm going to move to Tibet and I'm going to sell everything and I'm going to become a monk and then I'm going to, just eat whatever for 95 years. It's not that. It's like, okay, this is my life. This is where I'm at right now. This works for me, but there's a few things that need changing. So let's switch it up in a sustainable way that feels manageable and doable. And stays, so that's
I was thinking, as you were saying, because change is quite scary for a lot of people, and especially I was thinking, if you've lived your life for other people, for their approval, etc., getting to that point can be quite scary when you sort of say, okay, this is who I am, and that can be quite. It's not just like, oh yeah, I'm going to write something down on a piece of paper. It takes quite a bit of discovery to go, who am I? And if you've had, like, let's say you're in your 40s, you've had 40 years of conditioning the other way, and to sort of say, well, who am I? And trying to get through that. It's not just like you wake up.
It's not a worksheet. It's not a 5-point exercise. Oh, right, that's who I am now. Right. Sorry, everyone. I'm not going to come to those things because that doesn't sit with my boundaries. I mean, it's a much deeper work than that. And for a lot of people, if you're feeling really, really discombobulated and really like you're living out of sorts, then therapy is always a good thing. Coaching is not therapy. And that's a really clear point. I think there's a bit of blurred line sometimes with some people's duty of care in terms of who they choose to work with, and that's definitely not me. I'm very much about where are you now, and how, where do you want to go and how are we going to get you there, not dealing with stuff that is still hanging on you like a cloak that that's not the same as sort of limiting beliefs and all that sort of thing, but like the bigger stuff, it's that sometimes needs some deeper work, but it's all fixable, and sometimes things are more complicated. Like I'm not trying to make it. It's not a walk in the park and like, oh God, I never thought about it. Like it's like, oh, I happen to be needle phobic, and people say, oh, I don't like needles either. Just look away. I was like, do you know what? Never thought of that. Bloody brilliant. I mean, like really, things aren't as straightforward, and people walk their own lives and have different experiences. So it would be, foolish to assume that it's as easy for everybody as it is for somebody else. But it also doesn't have to be that difficult to make some small changes, which will have a ripple effect to making you feel more authentically aligned, for want of a better word, to who you feel that you are. And it's not going to be without some bumps in the road. But that's where, when it comes back to self-trust, you can handle that. You also don't need to declare to the world this life change that you're having, I mean, I am an open book, and if you follow me on Instagram, it's like literally like, wow, okay, dial it down. I don't mind. I'm here for it, I don't. But it's so you don't have to declare these shifts you're making.
Yeah,
it's only for you.
It's really strange because the word selfish keeps coming up, because when I went through the stuff recently, I had to put myself first, and that is perceived.
You're a man, surely that's fine, isn't it?
not in my head.
Wait for the comments.
No, but it seems, it's not okay. We are all selfish in many ways, and some,
of course we are,
in a narcissistical way. I understand that, but so I think that can get misunderstood. But for me, you do have to put yourself first, and that's not being selfish, because I've genuinely found that by doing that and making a decision about myself, putting myself and making a decision, having a negative impact on other people around me, that was also then used against me because, oh, you're just selfish. But through that journey, I realized that I'd never done that before. I'd never put myself first. And it's not that that's the way it's going to stay for the rest of your life. It's just a moment in time. And I felt that doing that allowed that ripple effect. The relationships I have with my children, with family, friends, how I see myself, how I show up, all started from that thing. And it's very confusing in that moment. And people will say it's selfish, but I genuinely believe I needed to put myself first and ignore the selfish comments. And then I'm able to go away from that and go, okay, yeah, I've looked after myself for a bit. I've aligned with certain things, more about who I am. And now I can go and build stronger relationships, repair certain things. But that takes that, and I force that in a not very nice way, but I feel it's necessary. And I think sometimes we won't do that because it is perceived from the outside world as being selfish.
I hear you, and I hear a lot of my clients say this because they are so used to looking after and taking care of everything, and with that comes a lot of control, and we don't want to necessarily relinquish control because we can do it quicker and faster and better, but we'll do it with a seething, but we don't want to give it up either. So there's this sort of like, well, one of the first things I do is say, what does selfish mean? Like, is it putting yourself first? Which I don't think is what selfish means to me. So in any kind of communication, we can all talk about a word and we've got different meanings to it. So it's really important, we establish what that word means and that we have a co-understanding. Selfish to me is if there is a piece of cake and somebody takes an extra large bit and it happens to finish the cake, they're not thinking about anybody else. That's selfish. That's just not, that's like, I'm going to have this and, I don't care. I don't care about you, and I'm not even thinking about it, and I'm not going to ask. I'm just going to snaffle it down, and I'll probably leave the plate there for somebody else to come and clear away, which they will, seethingly, resentful, but they won't ask somebody else to do it loud enough that they will do it. But putting yourself first, it does a number of different things. One, it has a ripple effect. Like when you said, I'm authentically myself, that you say, and it gives you permission to be authentically yourself. By me mirroring to my children that actually, yeah, you're really important to me, but you're not that important to the rest of the world, because everybody else has got their own children. And that's a good lesson for you to learn. I also have my own stuff going on. And sometimes you're going to have to know that you're going to have to work things out for yourself. That doesn't mean that I'm leaving them to sort it out. It means that they recognize that they too have the ability to put their needs before somebody else's when they need to. So by showing somebody that you value yourself to be able to put your needs first, not in spite of anyone, you're not doing this with taking the cake off the table and sod everybody else. You're doing this with love and kindness, but with a deep sense of, actually, I'm sort of playing a game if I'm not being authentically me. And if I'm not putting myself first, and this is where we hit burnout, and we are just dragging ourselves to the hilt, and we're literally incapable of then looking after the very people who we are burning out for, we can't help them. And when I was ill, and I wasn't really ill, when I was having the operation and then I was having the recovery time, that was a huge change. I have fatigue at the moment, which is a complete pain in the backside, because I am a high energy person, and I don't do busy, but I like being awake. And I have to sleep every day. And that's really annoying, because I'm like, it feels like a bit of a waste of time, because I'm asleep during the night as well. But the children know that it's like, that's just something I have to do, because if I don't do that, I can't do anything in the evening. And is that selfish? People say, I feel selfish just sitting down and watching telly. Nobody else in the house does. Nobody else who's sitting down watching telly on Christmas Day feels selfish about it. That's conditioning that you feel somehow you should, inverted commas, be looking after everybody else in spite of yourself. But if you're not doing that, feeling buoyant, feeling like that's authentically what you want to be doing, and you're not you're feeling, you're not on burnout, keep doing it. But if there's any other stretch of thinking, this just doesn't feel right, then that's fraudulent. And I don't want to be known as being inauthentic or being a fraud or pretending I like looking after people when I don't. Yeah. And I don't want anyone looking after me not wanting to do it either. So I think it's reframing the selfishness into, self-care without any fairy lights or bath bombs. It's taking time for yourself to focus on what's important to you, and not in spite of people, but actually because of the very people that you love.
Yeah, I've actually a question about like the to-do list. So I've come across quite a few people that they're only comfortable when they finish their to-do list, and they will drag everything around it. Yeah, and I don't. So it's interesting when you talk about that, because we have this invisible script or expectations or assumptions that, okay, I need to do something, and we don't slow down. Especially I've experienced these people that are, I don't know if I could describe them as atypical or anything like that, but they go, right, that's all got to be done, and it's in some perspective it looks like, wow, that person is super productive, gets loads of stuff done. But once I've had conversations with these people, you realize there is so much going on in their brain that it is crazy. And the only way to make themselves feel okay is that they've hit that 100 things to do, and then they can relax. And in my thought, because I think differently than I'm not atypical, I don't think. I I just go, well, just give yourself a bit of a break, like maybe, because it feels like there's this inner satisfaction that they've done this stuff. But for me, that list is never going to stop you. That is an endless road that you're going to go down. And there's maybe some, not miswiring, but a script in there to say, I can only rest once this is done. And so I don't know if that's different personality types or something's led them there, or it's just because I see the world differently. But for me, I think it would be better to invest some time understanding why that is. What's driving that need to do the 100 things? Is it some weird expectation? What does it give you? Could you, is it like a dopamine hit or something? Could you get that in a different way? I feel that would be more beneficial for you, because often I've seen in the experience that this person is in a relationship and the other person is either super relaxed. But I think,
it can be when you've got the other person doing the 100 things on the list. They're doing all the heavy lifting. Brilliant.
You go for it, love.
Yeah, I'm just watching telly. You can clear away the cake plate.
But yeah, cake crumbs all down them. Nice.
Yeah, didn't even notice.
Yeah. But I think that is only sustainable for a certain period of time, and it does this resentment or it causes other things that aren't actually, they're like symptoms, but they're not the root cause of what's actually going on. So again, these are just my experiences, my view. I don't know if I'm wrong or right, but I'd be interested to understand your perspective on that.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose for me, what I see, and there will be definitely people who know more about this than me, but what I see is that there is a feeling of control, that you feel like there is a sense of being able to control your environment when you feel like you've organized things, and organized could be whatever that means to you. And for some people, there is a sense of achievement about being productive, about not wasting time. We've got these words that we grew up. Don't waste time. Time stands still for no one. Chop chop. It's all about fast doing, not being. And I mean, different personality types definitely plays into it. Neurodiversity definitely plays into it. Neurotypicals, will behave in a different way and act in a different way and need different things. So, that's a whole different subject for somebody who knows far more about it than me. What I see with my clients, and certainly how I feel about it with myself, is I can make lots of lists, no idea where the list is. Absolutely no organization to the lists. It's just a brain dump, just to clear it from my mind. So that makes it work for me. And then I just choose the one or two things that have to be done, because I don't want to feel that fire under my feet of needing to do stuff which actually doesn't need doing. Now, sometimes things do get left right up until the last minute, and that is a little ADHD dopamine hit, because I like the challenge. I tell myself I like the challenge. It's not actually true. It's because I just don't see the point in doing it if it doesn't need to be done. Yeah. It's like, it's futile. It's like, I always do this on a Tuesday. Why? I actively have started having roasts on a Tuesday for dinner. And that's now become so common that it almost might be a Sunday. It might as well be a Sunday. So it's almost lost its value of being on a Tuesday night. Mix things up. So for people who like a list, as long as it feels like and it's all personal, right? So there is no right way to do things. It's all about what feels right for you. And it's only not right if it doesn't feel right to you, the person who's doing it. It doesn't matter to anybody else. That's the whole thing about being authentically yourself, right? It doesn't, you might have a list of 100 things and tick them all off. And I've got 19 lists and I've got no idea what's on them or where they are. Doesn't matter. If it works for you and it works for me, who's there to judge? It doesn't matter. Yeah. But I think what people say to me is like, how do I make more time for myself? And I say, I bet that you're doing stuff that you don't need to be doing. And they're like, no, I do. I have to do all of this. I'm just like, you just don't. And I know we all have different responsibilities and commitments and capacity and, in all ways, shapes and forms. It's not that straightforward to go just nap every afternoon. It's like, well, I work in an office and funnily enough, I can't do that. I get it. But there is another way round. you know, there is definitely stuff that you can take off your list that doesn't need to be there if you want to, unless you like that feeling. And it's like, okay, then I'm like, okay, well, what is that giving you? I'm curious to know, like, what is that? And it's not like, well, what is it giving you? Like, of course it can't be giving you anything. It's ridiculous. It's genuine. Like, okay, what is that giving you? How is that making you feel? Is that working for you? Does that make you feel like you can then, you've earned your rest in the evening? And what is that? Where does that come from? Who told you? Where have you decided that you need to earn rest? And then do you see that reflected in other people? What do you think about me when I'm sleeping in the daytime? Does that seem lazy? Oh, well, no, that's okay, because it's not them doing it. So there's a whole dialogue around these rules that we have written, perhaps not reevaluated and rewritten for what matters to us now. So that's where I'm saying actively seek to be wrong, actively challenge, and not in a beration of yourself way. You know, it's like, okay, I used to think that was really important to me, and it's just actually not anymore. And I hadn't checked in with myself and gone, you know, I was vegetarian for 7 years, and I stumbled and fell to the dark side over a Big Mac. I mean, it was a filthy fall at best. But I checked in with myself, and I thought, is actually what I thought when I was 17 being a vegetarian still relevant when I was in my 20s? And I was like, actually, no, it's not.
Yeah, it's I love this idea of being wrong, because there are people that almost their identity is tied to being right. So they don't. It's very difficult for them to be open-minded. And when I grew up, when I was a child, I used to have all these people, like kids around me, and they'd come into school and they'd have opinions. And I was like,
oh, imagine that.
Yeah. They weren't my immediate friends, but they had these opinions. I thought I was so stupid because I didn't have an opinion on politics or this and this, and I was like, wow, is my brain not properly formed because I don't have an opinion? And later on, I've realised that actually what they were spouting was just a lot of stuff that their parents had told them and explained and stuff like that. And now, so my thoughts and opinions are sort of changed. I don't need to have an opinion about things. If someone asks me about something I don't know, I might be curious enough to have a stab at it, but I don't need. There's no identity tied to having an opinion. I'm really good that I don't have an opinion about everything. I'm curious, and I think that is very
curiosity is brilliant.
Yeah, because of that curiosity, it allows me. So one of the reasons I like doing these lives is that when I say something, my old way of thinking has just been, you know, buried in certain way of thinking. Someone will say something, and I'll go, oh shit, like I've been thinking that way, and it's like that, and I'm like, I'm so grateful for that conversation, just to go, and I'm really okay with changing, and that people feel that it's not safe to change their opinion. But you go, well, my opinion on that was formed based on X, Y, and Z, and now you're showing me ABC. That makes much more sense to me now, and that's okay. It can change again, but people have this thing and go, no, it has to be that way. And often I find in my experience, those people are actually quite hypocritical in a way, because they'll say something and then you look at their actions later on when they've disappeared somewhere, and you go, but that's not what you said over here, but you're doing this. And I find it very interesting and fun to watch. But I think actively seeking to be wrong and looking for people that will change your mind, not in an aggressive way, just an open-minded wonder, okay, why do they think that? Opens up your world to so much more, and you go, oh, that way might suit me better. And because my thinking was this, I open it up to that, I allow people in, and I go, oh yeah, maybe I don't need to do it that way. And it's such a joy when you do that. I generally feel blessed when that comes along, not in a scary way, not that I'm not that I'm being invalidated in any way. I'm just like, yeah, cool.
Yeah, brilliant. There is a different way, and that's all right. And it might stay for a bit. I mean, I have to say I am massively opinionated on stuff I know nothing about. I was brought up around the kitchen table, and it was like, you know, if you didn't have an opinion, it was sink or swim. So sarcasm and opinions were very, very, yeah, that was how it worked. And I can have an opinion on something I know absolutely nothing about, and I can speak with conviction, and I could probably get a following, to be fair. but I love being wrong. And I used to spend a lot of time being really needing to be right, because, how embarrassing to be wrong, how embarrassing to not know. Really? It's not. I mean, now I love saying, like when you said, well, we do StreamYard, I was like, ooh, StreamYard, I don't know how that works. It's like, all right, well, then let's click on it and see how it works. It's like this fear, the fear of thinking that we have to be right all the time is so limiting, because it shuts us down. It closes our world to so many opportunities. And like you say, conversations and trying things. Like, what would you do with more time? If I say to my clients, I'd love more time. And they all say, I'd spend the time on my own with no responsibilities. I was like, do that. But then they're like, I don't want to be on my own, because I don't know what that feels like. And I'm like, okay. So that's why we're staying busy all the time, because we're not necessarily comfortable being on our own. But also, what are your hobbies? And people are like, I don't have time for hobbies. Oh, I go to the gym. I was like, is that a hobby, or is that like a fitness wellness? Like, yeah, like, well, I've just listened to this thing. I mean, I'm literally going out to go and buy really heavy weights now, because it will stave off Parkinson's. Anyway, I digress. But what are your hobbies? And it's like, yeah, I don't know what I like. And often we revisit stuff that you did like when you were younger, and what does that look like? But I am absolutely hell-bent on trying to find two things that I would never have thought would have been something that I'd want to do, and probably may not have shared with a lot of people. Line dancing. I'm massively into country music, never used to be. I love country music. And I want to go to a proper line dancing place. I want to learn how to line dance. I mean, I will be clapping and poking people in the face with the wrong hands, undoubtedly. But I'm all right with that, because it's all right to get it wrong. It's just about having fun. And the other thing is bungee jumping aerobics thing. I don't know if you've seen those videos, but it's absolutely hilarious. It just looks brilliant, like you can fly. I want to try that.
We just, as a sidetrack, what is that? So bungee jumping, you're jumping off something, or you're just running away?
You're attached to, it's called bungee fit or something. You're attached. It looks absolutely brilliant. There's nowhere in the southeast of England doing it. So if anyone wants to start a franchise, hook me up with it, because I am so for it. You're attached to a bungee harness, and you're on a sort of a hall floor. And then you're given instructions, and you sort of either fly round, or you do I don't know. But I mean, the videos of people not necessarily doing it like the instructors is just too good to miss. So I want to try it. I think it's going to be a right.
It reminds me of when you used to get kids in like those bouncers that you used to put on like the door frames, and they'd be like that. Nice.
Yeah, it's like that on steroids. But you see, it's all right to get things wrong, and that's the thing about I'm not doing it to be good at it. Yeah. I'm not doing it at all at the moment. I haven't found anywhere. But it's like learning the piano, learning to sing, drawing, getting into gardening. I got really into gardening last year. And I don't know what I'm necessarily cutting down, or whether something needs to live next to something else to make the best of it, but I'm enjoying it. I don't need to be, Alan Titchmarsh doing doing gardens. I don't know. I'm not trying to be Capability Brown.
I heard this thing the other day. It was on a podcast, and it was a lady that she said she only did things that brought her joy.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, wow, that's quite a powerful thing. And like you just explained it, I'm doing gardening. And we always have this expectation, especially like, oh, yeah, I'm going to go running so I can run a marathon. Why don't you just run to go and look at the outside world and get some fresh air? Like, we always put some weird goal attached to these things. And so there's two things that happened recently. So, I've got two young girls, and they go to gymnastics, and they're so bendable and flexible and stuff like that, as children are. And they keep doing these handstands and cartwheels. And there's part of me that goes, I absolutely want to be able to do that and surprise them that I can do it. I want to understand how my body works. I know we're all capable of doing a lot of things. I know some physical disabilities will not allow that, etc. But a lot is in our mind. And you go, okay, maybe I don't do a cartwheel straight away. Maybe I do just a forward roll. And that seems like, but
it feels easy until you try it and you're like, hold on a minute, I thought that was the easy bit. Just go around in the back.
But all of that and having children just brings that joy, that play. And we don't have play. We take ourselves too seriously. Something I like doing is skipping with my kids. Not skipping rope, just skipping like to get somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
One, you get there super quick. Two, like it's a good cardio workout. Three, it's just bloody fun.
Yeah.
The other thing is that my kids stop me doing it, especially when I'm doing it when I'm walking them into school and I'm skipping it. No, people can
Stop
do
now.
this.
Stop at the tree. Stop at the tree. Do you sing when you're doing it?
No, I'm not. I'm not a singer. I'm not a vocal person. But I just the fact.
So you skip in silence. Do you all skip in silence?
You can have fun in your head. It doesn't.
No, I know. I just want. I've got to be there. I just need more information. Do you hold hands, skip in silence, or you skip?
So I like to hold my daughter's hand, whichever one it is. Sometimes it'll be both, and then I kind of lift them up a bit more, so they're like a superhero just leaping over buildings. And it's just fun. It's just, and I have seen.
Interesting.
Yeah.
In silence, I would be singing, I think.
I know. I kind of go wee like that. You got to have some.
Yeah.
But you can see. I have seen like other parents look at me, and there is this look. Go, oh, what an idiot! I wish I could
do that.
And you just go, yeah, it's super fun. And I am hiding behind the pretense that it's for my kids when it's actually for me.
And then what was that bit where we were told suddenly we've got to grow up? And what is grown up anyway? And is grown up about, essentially it's not growing up. It's about, we're kind of encouraged to grow up to be in somebody's sort of box in a way, you know. It's like the growing up. I talk about pockets of joy. Like pockets of joy is a really big thing. I've got like on my Instagram highlight, I've saved some of the pockets of joy, because even in amongst really difficult times, there is, you know, wherever your focus goes, your energy flows, right? So if you want to be thinking, I'm in this job that I hate, you know, my boss doesn't recognize me for the work I'm doing the, you know, workload of 10 people and I live for the weekend and that's even rubbish because I'm tired. You know, it's like that isn't, but within that, there are ways of reframing it until you choose to make a choice to, do you want to keep going with that or do you want to make things different? So it might be the skipping to school. If that feels a bit outlandish, it might be thinking about, okay, what other little pocket of joy can I find in amongst doing something really mundane that feels like a waste of time? Or if you're going through a challenge, you're navigating something that's really hard, genuinely sad, you know, ruffles your sense of security. It's like, okay, even whilst things feel really heavy, there will be something, and I can always find it, something, I've probably got something not too far from me, which is ridiculous, which makes me laugh. I mean, you've got that, the wind blowing thing behind you. I mean, that's fun. It's fun. Whereas, you know, so it's a pocket of joy, looking for the pockets of joy, doing things just for the sake of doing it, without needing to be good, without needing to get a badge, without needing to progress to a next level or to do a thing. It's just, I got into paint by numbers. Really hard. I gave that up because it's really hard.
In terms of what's staying inside the lines, what's the deal?
Just really small little tiny bits. Yeah, I think I need to go for a more 5 to 7 year old range because, you know, but it was just fun to do it, mix up the paints and, you know, just have something else to think about. Didn't need to be good, just doing something different. Why not? You know, life's short if you're doing things you enjoy, and it's really long if you're not.
I bought myself a Rubik's Cube the other day.
Oh. Did you take the stickers off?
No. So I don't know where it is. It's somewhere, but it's a speed one. So it's all smooth and I have never solved one. I've only ever messed a Rubik's Cube up. I never understood it. And I was like, well, there's so much information out there now, and people will explain in different ways. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to do it. Do you know what? I got it, I think, last Saturday, and I watched some of these tutorials, and there's a process behind it. I solved it the other day. I was like, and I'm 47. I went, that's the first Rubik's Cube I've ever solved in my life. Honestly, I can't tell you the inner joy that brought me.
Yeah.
1 minute later, I messed it up again. I was like, what are you doing, Colin? But and I showed my girlfriend. She said, "Did you really solve it?" And I was like, "But I now want, yeah." But it's a pocket of joy that cost me, I think it was about €10 or something. And the other day, I found myself. I was like, "Oh, I should be answering all these messages," and I was like, "Yeah, but I really want to solve this. This is bringing me joy right now. Why not? It's not. I'm going to do it for every day. Just." And if I died that day, I go, well, yeah, at least I was doing something that I quite mind. But knowing that guilt in my mind was, well, you could be on your computer answering.
You can always be doing something else. The choice is yours. It's always, it's a really difficult pill to swallow, because it's very much easier to assume that all the accountability is, on somebody else's shoulders. But we always have a choice.
Yeah.
We might not make the right one in hindsight, but hindsight's a big thing, and that's all right. Who cares? No one remembers. We're not that important. Move on. Just not.
I thought that when I started doing lives and posting content, I thought people are going to show up, they're going to have an opinion about it. No one shows up. No one's that bothered about it. Get over yourself. And that's a very freeing experience. You just go, yeah, I'm going to have a great time. And then we always think that we're going to be this other version and we're going to jump into that person, but it doesn't. Sometimes it takes time, a little step by step. And now I feel more authentic. I don't think I'm fully connected with myself. Maybe and it's not that I'm hiding something. I feel that I still limit or restrict myself, or maybe not. But I'm getting there. And I did it step by step. And I really enjoy it. It's so amazing. And I get to show up on lives and just have these amazing conversations. Yeah. Come from a corporate background where everything has to be like all perfect, which is actually bullshit, because behind the scenes it's just chaos. So, I'd much rather show up as me, and I feel that works well because people resonate with that, and now people are following. People watch my live. You watched a live of mine, right?
I watched a live and I commented.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's like,
and I'm not on LinkedIn much. I'm trying to dabble both feet in the puddle of LinkedIn. So no, I love it, and I think it's bringing people. It's like you say, giving people permission that there is another way. You've given yourself this year of doing something completely different. Yeah. That then gives somebody else like, oh, okay, and nothing has to be forever. So you could try something for a bit and go, do you know what? I was going to launch a program I was running, and I'd been talking about it. It just didn't fit right. It was just something I was like, this just doesn't fit right. And I just did a live after the new year, and I'd taken some time out, and I just went, do you know what? I'm just not doing that anymore. Just not going to do it. And everyone was like, oh, and my DMs went off the chart. No one was putting it in the visible comments, but DMing, oh my God, you're so brave. You changed your mind. Oh my God. Oh, that was really like, oh, you did a U-turn. I was like, yeah, because it wasn't right. And that's all right. And they were like, oh, that's so inspirational. I was like, oh my God, please, if there's something that doesn't feel right, it doesn't have to stay like that. Yeah. And I know some of that might feel easier said than done, but it's kind of true.
I think that's, so the word intuition comes up quite a lot when you're talking, but also in my world, I started these lives through frustration, and I was in between. I didn't know what to do. And so I just started this. And along the way, people have advised me to do things, well-intentioned, sometimes unsolicited advice. And I've just gone, no, this feels right for me. And so actually something that's popped up is that I've gone to 3 lives a week. And I'm wrestling with the idea of going back down to 2 lives because I don't want to risk quality. I don't want to. So part of what I do is about freedom and flexibility to do things. And I want to be intentional about the conversations I have. So rather than stick with 3 and not be able to do all of those things, maybe go down to 2, but increase the length or the duration or something, but play with it. And part of me still doesn't know which one is right. also people have said, yeah, you should do a course and stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah. And again, it's nice.
Could and should are very different. You could do a course.
But then I'm like, yeah, I understand that, but I also understand what I'm like. I want to give so much to the people, so I'm going to create a course and just over deliver, but in the wrong way, not that's going to add value to them, and that's just going to keep me up at night. I'm not going to do it, and it's going to be a distraction from doing the thing that I like, and that can be confusing, and you can take people's opinions, but ultimately it needs to come down to you, and that's basically that inner confidence, that's
that self-trust. It's like, so my question that I want to ask you with that is, do you have to have an agreed 2 or 3, or can your baseline be 2? And if there is something or someone or an opportunity that comes up that goes, actually, that's really worth putting in, then that just becomes a third one that comes in. Does it have to be a rule?
No, so it's strange because I was trying to understand why I went to 3. I said because a lot of people are now coming to me, whereas before I would have conversations, and I've never tried to convince anyone to do it live if it wasn't the thing for them. But now people are going, oh, I've seen your stuff, I actually like it, could I do it live and stuff like that. So I was like, oh, demand is kind of meeting, my availability, and I thought, I could put my energy into doing it, and I really enjoyed doing it. But then yesterday I had this conversation. So I've got a mentor, Pedro's one of the guys who I did a live with, and he's helping me out on some of the stuff. And then I was just questioning why I've said 3. Just because demand is there, do I have to do it? No. But you slip into these weird invisible patterns or things, or you feel that you should do it. And again, I'm in a place where I have full control. I could stop this tomorrow and no one cares anyway. But I kind of signed up for it for some almost obligation. And I said to him, I would like to be visible, because I felt if I was visible, I was credible. That is absolute bullshit. That's not it. And having more intentional conversations and more purposeful is more visible. And and then we sort of dug into it, and he said, well, where's, like, if you do your 3rd live, what's your sort of numbers and stuff like that? And I don't want to get into necessarily all the technicalities behind it, but in essence, I love these conversations. But going 3 dips my energy. I'm not delivering on other things that I've promised.
It's a lot.
Yeah, that's important to me. So I'm wrestling with that. And a lot of that, it's nice to have people around you to help you, but the decision is mine. And I love that, because I've created something where the decision is mine. And if I'm aligned with it, it's okay. But it's also okay that I've said that I was going to go to 3 and go back down to 2. And I feel really empowered to do that. It's quite a strange feeling. You go,
liberating.
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
And how do you know when you know? Like, how do you know if it's the right decision? Well, the fact is you don't, and that's okay as well, because you can handle the fallout. I think the answer. You want to go back to 2. That's what I'm hearing. And if I said, right, they've actually said you can only do 2, Colin, how do you feel? I think you'd feel all right about it.
Yeah. I think there's that extra space, like you said. If there's something that's coming up, the sad thing is, I'm so curious when I do speak to people. I'm like, I want to do this live. I want to do this, and so but again, it's just measuring what that output is, and I started to get to a point where I'm having so many conversations, because there's background work, like you say, we have to have a conversation before the live, that I'm starting to lose the connection. I'm like, oh, did I have this? Did I do that? Yeah. That is quality that I'm losing, and I dislike that. Mm-hmm. And it's just like I'm rushing from one thing to the other, and I feel that I'm not learning everything from the conversations that I fully could do, because half of my brain is thinking, okay,
in 2 days I've got it.
Yeah, exactly. I would much rather be intentional. And there is
2 or 3, Colin.
Yeah. All right. 2, Jesus Christ. I'm never going to ask you to be my mentor.
Actions where it's at. Actions where it's at. We're not going to go around in these bloody circles all the time. Nonsense. It's straight talking. You see.
Simple question, Colin. Just 2 or 3. You don't have to justify anything.
Yeah.
But I am going to justify it. There is an intuition that says I will go faster if I do 2. Visibility will be better if I do 2. Quality will be better if I do 2. So I'm going to do 3.
And you can change your mind whenever you like.
Oh, amazing. I'm aware of the time. It's an hour and 20 that we've been going, and it feels like 20
Go
minutes.
us. Yeah.
Oh, geez. We should do this every week. Well, not every week.
I'll be your third wheel.
Amazing. But honestly, for today, it was a real pleasure. You've brought joy to my life. You've given me permission. You've given me, I would say, so much more than you probably realize. And just through the fact of being you. And again, we connected last year at some point, and there was never my intention to force you onto live. You were always okay, but things got in the way. But I'm hugely grateful that we got to do this live, and that we're connected, and that you can challenge my thinking, and that you can be yourself, because that gives me permission. I love your glasses. I've said this before. I'm going to call it out on the line. But honestly, it's such a pleasure to have you and have someone like you in my life, and having thank you so much. I hope people get to see you, because I think you have such an impact on people that get to see that, and you'll help so many people in such a unique way, which is super powerful. So for today, thank you very much, and I do really appreciate you.
That is so kind. Thank you so much. Hugely appreciate it, Colin. Thank you.
Okay, fantastic. Just if people do want to find you, by the way.
Yeah, I'm everywhere. Links will be in the thing, won't they? Links will be. So
as well. So
Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, website.
Is Facebook still a thing?
Yeah. Is it? It's like wildfire out there. Yeah, punchy.
Amazing. You've brought joy to my day. Beth, thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, take care.
Cheers, take care.